Right, so here's our digestive system, chapter 15. There's a lot to cover in this chapter. So we'll go through it quickly and I'll leave a lot of it up to you and how you want to do it, whether it's through those dynamic study modules or looking at the PowerPoint itself. The gastrointestinal tract is just another word for your digestive system. The function is to break complex organic molecules in food into smaller subunits that can be delivered into the bloodstream for delivery to the cells. So the structure is made up of the GI tract, which includes several accessory glands that release their secretions into it. And the GI tract is one hollow tube, and the word lumen describes the inner area through which food passes. It begins at the mouth and includes your pharynx or throat, the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and large intestine. So these are a look at the organs of your GI tract itself. So the organs on the left include all the organs that are involved in this one single tube, starting from the mouth and ending with the anal canal. If we look at accessory structures are organs that emit saliva, enzymes, digestive or pancreatic, bile, anything that they kind of emit or secrete will go into the GI tract. So these are all your accessory organs. Saliva helps to start the chemical process of food digestion. Your liver secretes bile and other digestive enzymes. Your gallbladder stores and concentrates bile. Your pancreas secretes different digestive enzymes. And then this is kind of the anatomy of the digestive tract that you should be familiar with. Along most of its length, the walls of the GI tract have these 4 layers. The mucosa is the innermost, the submucosa is where all the blood and nerves will be located. The muscularis is the layer of smooth muscles, and the serosa is the outermost layer supported by connective tissue. So these are just the layers of that digestive tract, the GI tract tube. Remember, here's your lumen. This is where food and waste will pass through. And then you can see the layers that are here. The muscularis is made up of 2 layers to help propel food along this tract. The regions of the GI tract are specialized into mechanical digestion, which is physical breakdown of food, and chemical digestion, which is the breaking of chemical bonds so that complex molecules of food can be broken into smaller subunits. This is a review of structures, whether they're mechanical or chemical digestion. And you'll notice that mechanical and chemical digestion both begin in the mouth with saliva because your saliva has an enzyme in it. So not only do your teeth tear apart pieces of food, but the saliva enzyme actually begins digestion of carbohydrates into smaller molecules. These are the digestive organs. They're aided by several accessory glands and organs, which are listed here. The mouth is your oral cavity. The hard palate is towards the front, and the soft palate is towards the back. Your soft palate will actually elevate to prevent food from entering your nasal cavity when you swallow. And these are the functions of the mouth that we talked a little bit about already, in that it also has teeth, salivary glands, and tongue that contribute to its functions. Teeth help with mechanical digestion, and you have different types of teeth that clip and slice and tear. The structure of the tooth, I'll show you here and I'll let you look through it. I want to point out enamel is the hardest substance in the body, and that's what covers the crown of your tooth. The pulp is where the blood vessels and nerves will be, so your teeth are alive. So here's the structure of the tooth. The crown is the part that you brush with the root below it. And then these are the types of teeth you can see here that you have. Tooth decay can be common as we get older, where bacteria digest trapped food and produce acid, and that'll erode the enamel, causing a cavity. So this happens not only when we get older, but also in young kids. Plaque is an invisible layer of bacteria, mucus, and food, and that can promote tooth decay. So that's why you want to brush your teeth twice a day at least. Gingivitis, we have another itis word, is inflammation of your gums. It can develop into periodontitis, which is inflammation of the soft tissue around the tooth, and it can cause the tooth to become loose and eventually fall out. You have salivary glands that release saliva into the mouth. This is where they're located, the 3 salivary glands. And the enzyme in saliva will begin chemical digestion of starch, so a lot of your carbohydrates. Here are your salivary glands. You can see how they will produce saliva and it'll be released through this duct into an area either on the top row of your teeth or the bottom, depending if it's the sublingual or submandibular gland. The tongue is a large skeletal muscle. It helps with speech, but also food manipulation. It helps to form food into what we call a bolus, which is a soft mass of food that's able to be swallowed. It's studded with taste buds, and that can help you monitor food quality. And then the pharynx is, again, the shared passageway by the respiratory and digestive system. It's where your swallowing will occur. It's voluntary, so you control the swallowing of the food through the pharynx. But there's also an involuntary component where the soft palate will prevent food from entering your nose area, and your larynx moves up, causing the epiglottis to cover your glottis so that food does not go into your trachea. So this is a look at how food is swallowed and the proper mechanisms that close off your nasal cavity, the soft palate, and the epiglottis, your trachea, so that the food goes where it's supposed to. The esophagus is the muscular tube that takes the food from the pharynx to the stomach, and food is moved along the esophagus by peristalsis, and those are rhythmic waves of smooth muscle contraction. So you can see here how these rhythmic waves move the bolus down your esophagus to your stomach. This takes between 5 and 8 seconds for the bolus of food to get from your pharynx to your stomach. The stomach is a J-shaped structure. It has 3 layers of smooth muscle. There's a sphincter, which is kind of an opening and closing of muscle that leads from the esophagus into the stomach. And if it's weak, heartburn can result because acid and other things can come back out into the esophagus, and that's what you feel, the burning sensation. The stomach stores food and regulates its release to the small intestine. And at this point, the bolus liquefies to form what we call chyme, and this is where the chemical digestion of proteins will begin. Gastric glands secrete hydrochloric acid, which kills bacteria, activates pepsinogen, which helps to digest protein, and it also secretes some intrinsic factor. The stomach is highly acidic, and you'll notice that if you get into anatomy and physiology, that because of the hydrochloric acid that the cells of the stomach secrete, it makes a very acidic environment to help the digestion of food. It's protected, the stomach itself is protected from that acidic gastric juice by a mucus layer, pepsin, and neural and hormonal mechanisms that time release gastric juices to coincide with food entering the stomach. And the stomach lining is replaced very rapidly. Because it's such an acidic environment, you can also develop ulcers. So the stomach lining is replaced rapidly, and there's also a layer of protection of mucus from that acidicness. Then we get to the small intestine. There are 3 regions of the small intestine, and the main functions of the small intestine are to, again, chemically digest, but also begin to absorb these smaller molecules that have been broken down from food. So here's a look at the small intestine. It has these circular folds that help increase surface area. These villi are finger-like projections with little microvilli on them where food can get trapped and digested. So chemical digestion occurs here. There's a lot of enzymes from the pancreas, bile from the liver, stored in the gallbladder and released into the small intestine. So we have absorption, digestion and absorption of fats, carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids. They're all broken down in the small intestine. And then another review of all the major digestive enzymes and where you can find them. The absorption is mostly occurs within the small intestine, and the surface area from these structures helps to increase absorption, those villi and microvilli. Each villi or villus has a network of capillaries and a lacteal, which is a lymphatic vessel. And this lacteal carries away the absorbed products of fat digestion in the form of chylomicrons. And they are just protein-coated products of fat digestion that are soluble in water, because normally fat is not soluble in water. So this is a look at how chylomicrons can get through this barrier. So they will be covered with bile salts. So bile is the main substance that's secreted by the liver and stored in the gallbladder. And bile goes through emulsification, which breaks down fat droplets into smaller fatty acids and monoglycerides. And then with micelles, they will turn into chylomicrons, which are able to pass this barrier. They are made water soluble into the lacteals. And the lacteals will eventually bring them to the liver for detoxification. So these are the main accessory structures and their functions. The liver produces bile, which is stored in the gallbladder. So your gallbladder, many people can live without, because your gallbladder just stores and concentrates that bile. And the bile then will be released and sent through this duct and enter into the small intestine, which is the duodenum right here. The pancreas is behind the stomach, and it produces some exocrine enzymatic digestive enzymes. It also has a role in hormones in your endocrine system with the production of insulin. But digestive-wise, it produces many enzymes that aid in digestion. So here's what we call pancreatic juice, containing many different enzymes. It contains bicarbonate ions, which are important for neutralizing the acid in the kind that just came from your stomach. So the stomach is extremely acidic, and then it gets to the pancreas and it becomes more basic. The liver is your largest internal organ. It's very important and basically just detoxifying everything that goes into the digestive system, into the blood. So it's a nutrient-laden blood from the capillaries and the villi of your small intestine travels through the hepatic portal vein to the liver. And the portal system is a vein linking two capillary beds. And we call it the hepatic portal system. And it links the capillary beds of the villi in the small intestine that have just come from absorbing all the teeny tiny molecules that are broken down from your food with the capillary beds in the liver. So everything that becomes absorbed into the bloodstream goes through this hepatic portal system in the liver. The liver takes all that blood, cleans it out, detoxifies it. Your liver is like the dishwasher of your body. Everything that you put into it, it gets clean. So a lot of drugs and toxins go to your liver. This is why alcohol poisoning, liver cancer is usually due to over ingestion of drugs or alcohol. And then after the blood goes through the liver to be cleaned out, that blood will enter into your circulatory system and head back to your heart to be pumped out. Digestive activities of the liver, mainly producing bile. It also regulates blood glucose level by storing glucagon, packages lipids with proteins, and removes poisonous substances. And once liver adjusts the composition of blood, it will be returned to general circulation. So here's a look at the capillary beds absorbing the nutrients and other molecules that have been digested from the small and large intestine, taking it to the liver where we have another capillary bed where everything is getting cleaned out, and then the hepatic veins, and then we'll eventually deliver it back into your inferior vena cava, which will take that cleaned blood back to the heart. Some disorders of the liver. Cirrhosis is when fat and scar tissue accumulate in the liver. It's usually caused by excessive use of alcohol. So cirrhosis is just a scarring or breakdown or damaging to the liver. Hepatitis, whenever you see the prefix hepa, that has to do with liver, and titus is inflammation. So this is inflammation of the liver, and it's caused by one of these 6 viruses. The liver will stop filtering bilirubin from the blood, resulting in jaundice, and that what gives a yellowish tint to the skin and the whites of the eyes. The gallbladder then stores, modifies, and concentrates bile. You can get gallstones in the gallbladder from too much cholesterol and other substances that build up. They can be surgically removed. If your gallbladder is just filled with gallstones, they'll take out your whole gallbladder. And this is a look at gallstones within the gallbladder. I've known several people, my father-in-law, my aunt, they've had their gallbladders removed because their gallbladders are just completely filled with gallstones. And that is usually caused by exercise, diet, lifestyle, mainly diet and what you put into your body. The large intestine, at this point, anything that hasn't been absorbed by the small intestine moves to the large intestine. And the functions are really to store and eliminate waste and absorb most of the water remaining in the indigestible food residue. Here is the structure of the large intestine. The cecum is the pouch with the appendix coming off of it. Your appendix has no known value to the body itself, but if it gets inflamed, you have appendicitis and you'll want to get it removed so it doesn't burst. Then the colon is this part, and there's different parts of the colon, whether it's ascending, transverse, or descending. So if someone has colon cancer, that's cancer of the large intestine. And then here's the rectum with external anal sphincters leading out to control the elimination of waste. So here's kind of the regions, talking about appendicitis, inflammation of the appendix, the colon, the functions of the colon, and how material passes through. The large intestine, you get peristaltic contractions that move the material through the large intestine. The feces are the medically correct terminology to refer to number 2, or the waste, and they move into the anal canal, and you have sphincters that relax for defecation, and defecation is the medically correct term for going number 2 or eliminating that waste. So overall, this is a great video on the digestive system that I'd encourage you to watch. Disorders of the colon, I'm sure we're all familiar with these two. Diarrhea is when material passes through the colon too quickly, so not enough water gets absorbed. And constipation is when the material passes through too slowly and too much water gets absorbed. Pouches, there's pouches called diverticula. This is a disorder, and diverticulosis. They don't cause any problems, but diverticulitis, they become infected and inflamed. And then colorectal cancer can begin with a polyp, or when a polyp turns cancerous. A detection is usually through a sigmoidoscopy or a colonoscopy. So colonoscopies are incredibly important to go through when you get into I think you start when you're 50s. You should go every 5 years or even less than that. So here's the large intestine and a diverticulum. And again, if it gets inflamed, it would cause diverticulitis. For digestion to occur, enzymes must be present at the right time in the right place. And they are not usually released until food is present. So nerves and hormones orchestrate the release of these digestive secretions. Processes that are quick or anticipatory are controlled by the nervous system, but things that take more time are controlled by hormones. So for example, salivation is controlled by your nervous system. So neural control will work better and faster in this case because food doesn't spend that much time in the mouth. And release of gastric juice is controlled by the nervous system and the hormone gastrin. Release of enzymes from the small intestine and pancreas, as well as the bile from the gallbladder, is triggered by neural reflexes, and hormones are released by your small intestine, which also play a role. So here's a look at neural control on digestive activity and hormonal control on digestive activity. A little bit about nutrition then, and I'll let you guys read through this. My Plate is a useful tool for planning a healthy diet. Try to make half what you eat fruits and vegetables, and just a quarter of your plate grains and proteins. And you should have 3 fat-free or 1% fat sources of dairy products per day. The Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee focuses on whole foods rather than nutrients, and they suggest eating less red meat and processed foods and more seafood and plant-based proteins. Sugar is actually the major concern, according to them, not actually fat. And portion control should replace calorie counting. So try not to count all your calories, but just make your portions a lot smaller. Fill up half your plate with fruits and vegetables. And I'll let you guys look through this, but great advice for nutrition. Food provides fuel, building blocks, and molecules needed to carry out chemical reactions and water throughout the body. So the digestive system is where you get this. So you are what you eat, literally. It's so important what we put in our bodies. Some nutrients are essential, meaning they must be included in the diet as the body cannot produce them. So that's what we call essential nutrients. Lipids include fats, oils, and cholesterol. Saturated fat that is solid at room temperature, and trans fat should be replaced in our diet in favor of unsaturated fats or oils. Elevated blood levels of cholesterol increase the risk of heart disease that can be caused from saturated fats. So here's a look at beautiful, delicious things, steaks, those might be pork chops, saturated fats and trans fats. Raise the risk of atherosclerosis, which is the buildup of plaque in your arteries that can cause blockage. And most of the fat should be monosaturated, polysaturated, or omega-3, so replacing with some of these oils down below. Carbohydrates provide energy. Simple carbohydrates are empty calories because they provide only energy, but you want to look at things with complex carbohydrates that provide energy along with other nutrients. Proteins, I'll let